True strength is not measured by wealth or comfort, but by resilience and love. A single father's sacrifice can shape the destiny of his child. No matter how heavy life feels, determination and hope can build a future brighter than dreams. So stay with us till the end. James had never imagined that life could change so suddenly. Just a year ago, his home was filled with laughter, his wife's soft voice humming in the kitchen, and little Daniel chasing shadows across the living room floor. But after the tragic accident that took his wife's life, the house fell silent. The walls seemed heavier, the nights longer, and the mornings colder. Now, at only 35, James found himself a single father, with the weight of both parenthood and survival pressing down on his shoulders. Every morning began before the sun, his alarm cutting through the stillness as he prepared for his first job at the local hardware store. By evening, he would rush across town to his second shift as a delivery driver, hands aching, body exhausted, but mind restless, always worrying about unpaid bills. Sometimes he would sit at the kitchen table late at night, head buried in his hands, staring at the pile of notices and school letters, wondering how long he could keep going. Yet every time he felt himself crumbling, Daniel's small footsteps would patter into the room, his sleepy voice asking, "Dad, are you okay?" And James, despite the heaviness in his heart, would force a smile and reply, "I'm okay, buddy. Go back to sleep." He didn't want his son to see the cracks, the struggle, or the fear that often kept him awake until dawn. To Daniel, his father was the unshakable rock, the one who made everything feel safe, even when the world outside was falling apart. But to James, every day was a battle between despair and determination. He promised himself one thing, though no matter how tough life became, Daniel would never feel unloved, never go to bed hungry, and never doubt that his father would give everything to build a better tomorrow. That promise, though heavy, became the only fuel that kept James moving forward. The weeks turned into months, and the rhythm of James's life became a blur of long shifts, quick meals, and constant fatigue. Daniel, though only 10, noticed more than his father realized. He saw the lines deepening on James's face, the way his hands trembled when counting out change at the grocery store, and how sometimes his dad would stare out the window for long moments, lost in thought. One evening, while they shared a simple dinner of soup and bread, Daniel looked up with curious eyes and asked, "Dad, are we poor?" The question pierced James's heart. He paused, spoon halfway to his mouth, and forced a smile. "No, son," he said gently, "we're not poor. We're rich in dreams." Daniel grinned, satisfied with the answer, but James felt the ache settle deeper in his chest. He carried a constant storm inside, the guilt of not being able to give his son the comforts other kids had, the fear of failing, and the unrelenting weight of loneliness. At night, when Daniel had drifted off to sleep, James would sit by the dim light in the living room, clutching his wife's old photograph. He whispered promises to her that he would take care of Daniel, that he would never let him down, even if it meant breaking himself in the process. Some nights the tears came, silent and heavy, soaking into the worn fabric of the couch. He wanted to be strong, but the truth was, the burden often felt unbearable. And yet, every morning, when Daniel ran into his arms before school, hugging him tightly and saying, "You're the best dad ever," James found a flicker of strength returning. Those small words, so innocent yet so powerful, reminded him why he endured. Life was hard, yes, but giving up was not an option. His son's belief in him was stronger than his own doubts. James began to realize that even in the storm, Daniel's love was the anchor keeping him from drifting away. It was a Saturday afternoon when James decided to fix Daniel's old bicycle. The chain was rusted, the tires nearly flat, and the paint chipped away from years of use, but James knew how much his son loved it. Sitting on the porch with tools scattered around, he worked under the soft glow of the setting sun. Daniel was nearby, playing with a ball, when their neighbor, Mrs. Carter, stopped by with groceries. James overheard Daniel proudly telling her, "My dad is the strongest man in the world. He never gives up." James froze, his hands tightening on the wrench as the words sank deep into his heart. For years, he had seen himself as failing, stumbling through life, barely surviving. But in his son's eyes, he wasn't weak, he was a hero. Tears stung his eyes, and he quickly wiped them away before Daniel could see. That evening, while Daniel slept, James sat down at the old laptop he hadn't touched in months. For the first time in a long while, he searched for opportunities, night courses, skill-building programs, anything that might give him a chance at a better job. The hours slipped by as he studied, the quiet hum of determination replacing the silence of despair. Days turned into weeks, and James found himself balancing work, parenting, and late-night study sessions. Exhaustion still lingered, but it was different now. It was driven by purpose, not fear. Slowly, his efforts bore fruit. A new job opened up at a logistics firm, one that paid more and offered stability. James walked home after receiving the offer letter, clutching it like a treasure. For the first time since his wife's passing, he felt the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. That night, when Daniel hugged him and asked why he was smiling, James simply said, "Because tomorrow looks brighter, son." And for the first time in years, he truly believed it. Years passed, and the struggles that once weighed James down became stepping stones for the future he had built with Daniel. The long nights of study and work had paid off, their small apartment had been replaced with a modest but comfortable home, and Daniel grew into a determined young man who carried his father's values like a badge of honor. On the day of Daniel's high school graduation, James sat in the crowded auditorium, his hands folded tightly, his heart racing with pride. He remembered the nights when he wondered if he could even afford Daniel's school fees, the times he nearly broke under the weight of responsibility, and the endless sacrifices that had defined his journey. Now, watching his son walk across the stage in his cap and gown, all of it felt worth it. When Daniel took the podium to give his speech, his voice was steady, filled with the confidence James had always hoped to see in him. "Many people here will thank their teachers, their friends, and their families," Daniel began, pausing as his eyes searched the crowd until they landed on James. "But today, I want to thank one person above all, my father. He taught me that strength isn't about never falling, but about rising every single time you do. He showed me that even in the hardest storms, love and sacrifice can light the way. Everything I am today, I owe to him." The audience erupted in applause, but James barely heard it. His eyes blurred with tears as he stood, clapping for the boy who had become his greatest achievement. In that moment, James realized that every sleepless night, every burden carried, every sacrifice made had not been in vain. As they embraced after the ceremony, Daniel whispered, "We made it, Dad." And James, holding his son close, knew they had gone beyond the horizon together. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more motivational videos.